Hello everyone, Steve Avellino here, certified fitness trainer, corrective exercise specialist, and specialist in senior fitness with the International Sports Sciences Association. For those of you who have not taken my programs, I have a company called Reverse the Aging Processes, which provides fitness and corrective exercise specifically for seniors. In the last year, I have worked with over 800 seniors, and in doing so, I've identified 11 problem areas that we as seniors have. The first problem is shifting joint architecture. And what I mean by that is, as we age, our joints become a little loose. And I see that big time in the feet. So if you were to take a look at footprints the next time it snows, here's a foot here. Everybody's foot is going to be externally rotated. Probably 95% of the people, of the footsteps you're going to see in the snow, are externally rotated. In turn, the arch right in here collapses down, okay? When that happens, the joints and bones in the foot change position. So if we take a look at this here, there's 5 joints here, 5 joints here, 5 joints here. 25% of the bones in our body are in our feet. 23% of the joints in our body are in our feet. And we never work them. So that's the first thing we're going to do is work on the joint architecture of our feet, which will then affect the way our ankles sit. For those of you who have knee problems, it's normally not a knee problem. It's an upstream problem from feet and ankles and a downstream problem for the hips. What we're going to do is we're going to work on the feet and the ankles, then we are going to readjust our pelvis and put it in the position where it's supposed to be, and then we're going to start reprogramming the spine. What I mean by that, as we age, our vertebrae have a tendency to shift from one side to the other, okay, as we age from sitting or different postures, possible injuries, and in turn we lose the stability in the spine. If it's a movement problem and not a medical problem, you can get that back, and it does wonders for your movement, no more pain, everything is good. The other thing we're going to do is you take a look at the 5 lumbar vertebrae right here. We're going to lengthen that area and create space between the vertebrae. Okay, and in doing so, we're going to have more room for the discs there and more room for the nerves coming out. And that actually will make you taller. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is do 2 exercises for the feet and 1 for the ankle. If you're doing this at home, bare feet on a carpet is best. I have one of my private clients, 76-year-old female, who's been wearing orthotics in her shoes for 40 years. Because of bad foot pain. Within 5 weeks, the pain was gone after doing these movements, and her orthotics after 40 years are now in a drawer. So we've reversed the joint architecture in her feet by 40 years, and I have another client who's doing the same thing. So the first thing we're going to do is what is called a standing arch. So your feet are going to be relatively wide, so you are stable, bare feet on a carpet, and you're going to grab the carpet with your toes, okay? When you do that, you're going to feel your arches start to activate, okay? And what is happening is when the arch starts to activate, I have some clients with flat feet, the arch is down. After a few sessions, the arch goes back up, which is now shifting the position of the bones and joints in the feet. So first thing, parallel feet, relatively wide, bare feet, grab the carpet with your toes. You're now feeling your arches start to activate, okay? They're starting to rise. Take a break. Let's do another one. Once again, grabbing the carpet with the toes and holding it. You're not going back and forth. Relax. And let's do one more. Feet should be parallel, not externally rotated unless there's pain. And then grab the carpet with the toes. At this point in time, you should be feeling it in the arches. Initially, one or maybe both, you may start feeling a cramping sensation, but you'll probably feel it more in one arch than the other. Reason being, most of us have one foot that's externally rotated more than the other, okay? I'm looking at one of the cameramen here, and that is, your feet are almost parallel, which is very, very rare, very rare. Okay, next thing we're going to do is we're going to do a seated arch. So once again, bare feet, parallel feet, grabbing the carpet with your toes, and I'm feeling a slight cramping sensation in the right foot doing this. Relax, grab the carpet with the toes again. Reason we're doing it sitting is because we're working the calf muscle in a different area. If you go into a gym, you're going to see a standing calf machine and a sitting calf machine. The standing calf works the gastrocnemius muscle. In this position, you're working the soleus calf muscle, and the knees have to be at a 90-degree angle to hit that. So once again, just grabbing the carpet with the toes. Now the movements I'm going to give you today, ideally you should do them every morning. Once you get the hang of them, it's going to take you maybe 6 or 7 minutes, and it's going to make a huge difference in your life. Once again, I've done this with hundreds of seniors, and the results are amazing. Okay, next thing we're going to do, since we've now activated the arches of the feet, and over time getting the joint architecture to change, now we have to work on the connective tissue in the ankles. Reason being, if we're externally rotated, and if you get a close-up of the right foot here, the arch collapses, and you can see when the arch collapses, the ankle is now going inward as well. We've been like this for decades, so in turn, the connective tissue around the ankle is now adapted to that bad position. So, what we need to do is loosen up all the connective tissue around the ankle. So what we're doing, extend one leg, we're going the foot all the way forward and then all the way back. Ideally, you want to keep the middle of your calf here right over the middle of your foot. What you're going to find the first few times you do this is you'll be bringing it up and the foot's going to go to the side or it's going to go inside here, and all that is sticky connective tissue, okay, after decades of having your feet in the wrong position. So let's do this again. Toes all the way forward, toes all the way back. The key to this is long and slow. Keeping the calf in the middle, actually it's your tibia bone here, keeping it in the middle of the foot. And once again, you're going to find that there may almost be like a parking brake in one of both of your ankles, where there's a hitch when you try to bring it backwards or forwards. And once again, that's just sticky connective tissue. Okay, so we've worked on the feet, we've worked on the ankles. Next thing we have to do is, once again, I'm not worried about the knees because the knees are a function of feet, ankles, and hips. So let's adjust the pelvis. Our pelvis has a tendency to be tilted from all the sitting we do, and it can also rotate from one side to the other and get stuck there. So ideally, once again, parallel feet. If you take a big diaphragmatic breath into the belly and relax, and now squeeze your glutes, your butt muscles hard, you're going to notice your pelvis comes forward about a half an inch, maybe a quarter inch. Okay? Ideally, that's where we want the pelvis to be whenever we're standing. And don't worry about having to think about this. It's going to happen naturally over time if you do the homework. So let's do a few of these. Parallel feet again, bare feet. Squeeze the glutes hard, and you feel your pelvis come forward about a quarter of an inch, half an inch. Hold, relax. Again. Relax. And one more time, squeeze the glutes, relax. Just as a sidebar here, if you're going for a long ride, or especially in a plane, or sitting at the movies if they ever reopen, if you just squeeze the glutes from time to time, you're not going to have lower back pain from all the sitting, simply because when we activate the glutes, they support the lumbar spine back here. Okay, so now, parallel feet, we've activated our arches, we've loosen up the connective tissue around the ankle. We squeeze the glutes. The pelvis is where it's supposed to be. Now we're going to take a deep breath through the nose, exhale halfway, and tighten the abdominals. When you do that, your rib cage is going to drop 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch. Okay? That is the position where we should be standing at all times. Now, once again, don't worry about this because it's going to happen over time. So, squeeze the glutes, breath, exhale, tighten. Tighten the abdominals, the rib cage comes down. Now your spine is in a globally braced position, and that's where we want it to be. The key to the brace is being able to function as a normal human being while still being braced. You can't be super tight here, super braced, like if someone's going to punch you in the stomach, and then function and breathe and do all the things you have to do in daily life. So the trick is to be able to, after you practice it for a while, being able to be braced with the pelvis forward and not even have to think about it. Now that's going to happen once you get the hang of doing this and saying, okay, I'm loosening the brace, and now I can function normally and still be braced. That said, if the rib cage collapses, you've lost your brace. Okay, so that is the key to that. Okay. Another thing we're going to do now is called getting long, and once again, we are creating space between the 5 lumbar vertebrae here. Before the COVID shutdown, I had 14 students who were 1/2 inch taller than they were at last year's physical, and these are people in their 80s, simply because we created space in that area. So you're going to put your thumbs underneath the bottom ribs, the tips of your middle fingers on the pelvic bones, and all we're doing is lifting the rib cage high but not back. When you do that, you can feel an elongation right here. You'll also notice that there's a bit of a curve here. That's called a Lordotic curve, and that's what normally we are born with, but with all the sitting, we're now curving in the opposite direction, which is not good. By the way, when we were squeezing the glutes to bring the pelvis forward, this is the back of our pelvis right here. Okay, so let's practice getting long again. Feet parallel, wide, thumbs underneath the rib cage, tips of the middle fingers on the pelvic bones. We're lifting, and now we're creating space between the 5 lumbar vertebrae, which we lose as we age. That said, over time, the 2 muscles on either side of the spine, the erector spinae, will start to do that on their own. Normally after 2 or 3 weeks, if you do this every day, 6 or 7 minutes in the morning, the whole routine, and once these are active and they're doing it on their own, your abdominal stabilizer muscles will become active, do it on their own, and then all of a sudden you are taller, braced, and feeling much better. Not only are you taking pressure off the back, you're also creating space for the internal organs, and your breathing will be better. If you're hunched over like this, if I take a breath in this position, that's as far as I can go. If I'm in this position, I'm taking in twice the amount of air, okay? Now, the next thing. So another sidebar, when you're thinking of your spine is a chassis. Your engines are your shoulders and your hips. So they should do all the work. The spine is a chassis. It should be braced straight, not necessarily vertical. This is straight as well. Now, once you've mastered the brace, or at least get a hang of it, we now want to sit down braced, okay? And we don't because of a lack of hip mobility from all the sitting that we do. So when we sit, our spine takes over, and the spine will take over either here at the base of the rib cage, or right here above the thoracic spine. And what I mean by that is when we're sitting, if I'm not braced, this happens. So you can see how my spine is now in flexion. It's not globally braced. If I do the brace, tighten the glutes, breath, exhale, brace, tighten here. Notice how my spine is now straight. Ideally, that's the way we want to sit. This is the way we want to stand at all times. This is the way we want to sit at all times. And once again, if it's not a medical problem, if it's a movement problem, if you do this 6 or 7 minutes a day, probably within a few months you'll be doing this. You may find, and this will be a little frightening at first, you'll get into a position where you're like an inch or two from the bottom of the chair and you're going to fall into the chair. So this will happen. That's actually good. What that means is you're keeping your spine braced, but the hips aren't mobile enough to do 100% of the work at that depth, okay? So your average chair is 17 inches tall. I will do these on a 12-inch box at home, so I'm going down a lot lower, and it's stretching out the erector spinae muscles that run on either side. When these become active and start stretching, any subluxations you're going to have with vertebrae off to the side are eventually going to correct themselves. Now, this actually happens. I've had quite a few students now who had back pain, no longer have back pain. I go for Chinese acupressure once a month for the last 2 years, so it's a type of massage. Every time I lay down, the same guy, he does an assessment, and he works on my back and my right shoulder area. Since I've been reprogramming my spine, doing the seated braces, I've now straightened out my vertebrae. So my back was feeling good, but when I laid down the last time when I went for the acupressure, he does an assessment, and I hear him start to grunt, and he keeps going because he couldn't find the knots in my back that have always been there. He couldn't find the trigger points. Reason being, by doing seated braces and stretching this out, the vertebrae are going back into alignment and the knots are disappearing. So he immediately went to work on my lower body, which he hardly ever does. So this definitely works, okay? So let's go through we still have time left, so let's go through the movements. First of all, standing arch. If you have a balance issue, you may want to do this holding on to the sink. I have a lot of my students with balance issues that I give them different moves and they hold on to the sink. It's better than the counter, okay? Because the counter you can slide, the sink you have something to grab onto. So, feet wide, parallel feet, bare feet, grab the carpet with your toes. You immediately feel the arches activate. I have a gentleman in his 80s in one of my Foxborough classes who had flat feet. He now has arches. And he's walking better and he can wear different shoes that used to cause him pain. Okay, relax. Grab the carpet with the toes. And relax. Now we're going to do the seated arches. By the way, if you have problems getting out of a chair, it may be biomechanical. So if I'm sitting here, here's the power in my hips, here are my heels. My hips are too far away from the heels, so you have to launch. So if you get closer to the front of the chair, kind of tuck the heels in and bring the feet a little wider, then all your power from your hips is actually transferring down to your heels. So that can make it a lot easier to get out of a chair. For some people, I can show them that and they can get out of a chair much better instantly. Okay, so we are bare feet, parallel feet. Sitting, we are grabbing the carpet with the toes. Relax. Grab the carpet with the toes. You should really be feeling this in the arches now. If you're not, don't worry, it is going to happen. Okay, now once again we've worked the feet. Let's loosen up the connective tissue around the ankles, long and slow. Most people have one ankle that functions better than the other. And you're thinking about keeping the middle of your tibia bone right here in the middle of the foot, okay? Once again, you'll find that the foot may go out to the side when you bring it back. It may go off to the inside when you bring it forward. That's just sticky connective tissue. We'll do the other side. Long and slow, that's the key. For people who have swollen feet or swollen ankles, I have 2 of my private clients, we can do this and we literally watch the swelling go down. So they'll take off their shoes and socks and I'll see a line in the foot from the shoe where the swelling is. We can do this for a few minutes and the line disappears because the swelling is going down in the foot. So if you have swollen ankles or feet, definitely try this. Okay, those are called ankle glides. By the way, if anybody wants these moves emailed to them with descriptions, just let me know. I'm at steveavellino.com. And I'm also at reversetheagingprocesses.com. That's my website. Okay, so now parallel feet, squeeze the glutes hard. Pelvis comes forward. You may start having feeling that activate the abdominal muscles as well. Okay, relax. Squeeze the glutes hard. Relax. Squeeze the glutes hard. Relax, and one more time. So once again, when you do this, you'll feel your pelvis come forward. If you're feeling tightness through here, through the hips, don't worry about it. That's just tight hip flexors, okay? That will eventually go away. Okay, in this position, squeeze the glutes, breath through the nose, exhale halfway, and brace. Nice and tight here. These muscles contract, pulls the rib cage down 1/4 of a half an inch. That's where we want to be standing at all times. Now, the cool thing is, if you do this every morning, after a couple of months, you'll start walking braced without even thinking about it, okay? So once again, you don't have to be super tight here. You have to find your sweet spot, but as long as the rib cage doesn't collapse down, you're braced, okay? Exhale, brace. Okay, next thing we're going to do, once again, is get long. So we are putting the thumbs underneath the bottom ribs, tips of the middle fingers on the pelvic bones. Pelvic bones are right here. This is the posterior view. And now lift the rib cage up high but not back, and you will feel your lower back, the 5 lumbar vertebrae here, start to decompress because we're taking the pressure off of them. I have a couple of clients, one with a limp from a hip, one with a limp from an ankle. When I have them get long and they walk, the limp goes away because they're taking weight from the upper body off the lower body, and it makes it easier to walk. Okay, so let's get long again. All right, let's finish up here with the seated brace. So tighten the glutes, inhale, exhale, brace nice and tight here, and you can see that my spine is globally braced. Now once again, it doesn't have to be vertical, it can be like this, but we don't want any breaks, and let me demonstrate a break. Because the hips aren't mobile enough to go down there, the spine helps out, and we don't want that. Once again, the spine is a chassis. It shouldn't be doing any work. The work is done by the hips and the shoulders. Let's try that one more time. This is the hardest part of this routine, is learning to figuring out how tight your brace can be and you can still function normally, and also creating enough hip mobility so that you can sit and the spine is globally braced. Once again, this is going to get rid of back pain unless it's a medical issue. And it's going to make you feel a lot better. You're going to be more stable. If you have pain in the feet or knees or hips, this is going to help as well. It's helped probably a couple of hundred of my students already. Okay, so that is it for today. I've found a lot of my clients, because of all the sitting they've been doing since the shutdown, their glutes have atrophied. The glutes have literally shut off, and they have serious balance and stability issues. If we do another one of these classes, I'm going to do a glute workshop which specifically targets these muscles, especially the glute medius, because that is the primary stabilizer of the hip. And so that will be the next one. Once again, I've identified 11 problems areas with seniors. The first part of it is taking care of our shifting joint architecture and bringing it back to where it was decades ago. And once again, this can be done. I've seen it a couple of hundred times now. So once again, any questions, you can email me at steveavellino@yahoo.com. If you want a copy of the movements with an explanation on how to do them, email me and I will get those off to you as soon as possible. Also, the website reversetheagingprocesses.com has a list of all of my programs. And if you're interested possibly in the Glute Workshop, I do not know when Stoughton is opening again, but just let me know and I'll let Carolyn know and see if she wants to do another class. And then after that, I have classes for balance, posture, stability, rib cage expansion and rib cage mobility. A lot of my 90-year-olds do not have the ability to take a full breath because this area has become tight and brittle. And then there's all sorts of other programs that we do. So that is it. Once again, Steve Avellino, certified fitness trainer, corrective exercise specialist, and specialist in senior fitness with Reverse the Aging Processes. Feel free to contact me with any questions. If you do not think that you're doing a move properly, email me and we'll make sure that you're doing it correctly. Okay? Thank you very much.